Hey guys, welcome back to the Prehistoric Life podcast. I'm your host, Eric Crawford, and today we're joined by someone. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Daniela Barrera Guevara. I am a student of paleontology currently at the Museum of the North in Fairbanks, Alaska, and a student here at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. But I've done all sorts of dino related stuff down in the lower 48. Right now, I'm in Alaska. I've worked with the Badlands Dinosaur Museum in Dickinson, North Dakota, and most recently worked with some Tyrannosaur and horned dinosaur material.
So, the basic question that I start off every interview with is what is your favorite dinosaur?
Ooh, that's an easy one. That's an easy one. I used to be tour guide for the museum in Badlands Dinosaur Museum, and my boss or the museum director, not director, the curator, Dr. Denver Fowler, would always ask all the little kids like, "What's your favorite dinosaur?" And whatever they would say, you would just go, "Wrong! It's Triceratops." So something along those lines. My favorite dinosaur is Pentaceratops. Currently, I've been working a lot with this family of horned dinosaurs, and that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. What's better than 3? 5. Pentaceratops is a pretty cool dinosaur.
But jumping right into this, what got you into paleontology?
That's a good question. That's a good question. So actually, I didn't start with a love for dinosaurs right away. I was a small child, and I grew up near the coast. And my favorite animal, or extant animal, living animal, are whales. I love whales. And when I was a little kiddo, I loved Moby Dick. I loved the giant toothed whale. And I remember reading, obviously, a kid friendly version of Moby Dick. It's a pretty dense book. And
Yeah.
I remember finishing it and being like, the whale won. And I remember being shocked. Like, this is the first time, like, an animal has won against a human. And I thought whales were awesome. They were the best thing ever. In particular, sperm whales, I thought they were so interesting. Giant toothed whales that have echolocation. They don't have a baleen. They're predators. And this love for whales basically sent me into a rabbit hole of whale evolution. Like, oh, they have little legs. They're mammals. They're not fish. They're mammals. We're mammals. But why are they the way they are? Why do they still have little legs? What are all these little adaptations from like land to sea? And then I discovered ancient whales. I was like, Basilosaurus, so cool. I remember being rather younger and watching the Walking with Beasts documentary with Basilosaurus. And I thought that was awesome. And that just led into, oh, this the book of life, the 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 book that is the geological record and all the stories that it can tell us. And I basically saw dinosaurs and I was like, that is the second coolest thing after whales. But now, if you ask me, I think dinosaurs are a little cooler than whales. But, that's what got me into this.
And that's unironically enough where I'm from. Let's see if I can reach this without falling out my seat. We don't get a lot of dinosaurs from where I'm from, but we get whales, sharks, and dolphins and whatnot. This is one of the first things and very few real things in my collection, which is very fun. Of course, it's a whale vertebra for those of you watching. But you mentioned that you specialize. I don't want to say specialize, but specialize. You enjoy horned dinosaurs. What got you interested in those horned dinosaurs?
Well, at the beginning of my paleontological career, I I was doing a lot of field work, and I went with the attitude of I am down to work on any single group of dinosaur. And what you get the most in the field is duck-billed dinosaurs. duckbill dinosaurs are everywhere, and I love duckbill dinosaurs. I love lambeosaurs. I have a little skeleton of uh, there's the Parasaurolophus reconstruction, and then there's the
I love
skeleton.
it.
I love. I'm also a skeletal artist. I have some stuff in social media. But lambeosaurs were my hit. They're awesome. Duckbill dinosaurs with giant crests, and then I got a project. My first project that I'm still working on so far was a juvenile horned dinosaur. And that opened the floodgates to everything horned dinosaur. And at the time, it was just a short project that turned into something way bigger with Dr. Denver Fowler of the Badlands Dinosaur Museum. He specializes in horned dinosaurs. And I basically invited him to be part of this project. I was like, hey, you are like really established in the horned dinosaur field. And I would like to, poke around, see what's going on. And basically, we started the project with Dr. Elizabeth Friedman, and he taught me everything about the horned dinosaurs. He really opened my eyes to like ontogeny, stratigraphy, how, most likely how they evolved, and etc. And I thought that was so interesting, so interesting. And ever since then, I've had a pretty good interest with horned dinosaurs. Actually, I can move. I have a bunch of horned dinosaurs over there. Really old reconstructions, of course. There's like some Chasmosaurians,
Cool.
some Centrosaurians, and then a skeleton.
Nope. It's somewhere buried, probably. I can't see anything. I love lighting. Oh, it's actually right in front. This very old school reconstruction that we all love. You have to love it.
Oh yeah.
It's the OGs. But Alaska is a ways up north. So why Alaska? Why did you are you from Alaska or did you move there? Are you moved there?
Well, my mom's from Anchorage, and she's been living in Anchorage for a while now. I was down in the lower 48. I was in North Dakota for a while, and it was okay. The museum stuff was amazing, but it's the town was really small. There wasn't a lot to do. You could like walk the whole town at Dickinson, North Dakota, in a few days. So I had seen all the corners. And I'm an Alaska resident, so I was like, oh man, I've heard pretty good things about the University of Alaska Fairbanks. It'd be pretty cool to work with Alaska stuff, with Alaska dinosaurs. And I just decided to visit the University of Alaska Fairbanks like August of last year, I think. And I was like, I'll just give it a shot. I'll see what's going on. I'm going to apply to the university. I was already doing my undergrad in North Dakota, and I was still, I had some pretty good scholarships, but I was still mostly paying. And then I went to Fairbanks and I spoke. I had already met Patrick Druckenmiller, the museum curator and museum director of the Museum of the North, at a conference at a Museum of the Rockies, Dinos and More. I had spoken with him, like, hey, what's the sort of project that you're doing up there? If the student is interested, what could I do? And I visited Museum of the North. I visited University of Alaska Fairbanks, and they basically gave me a pretty good scholarship deal. And Patrick Druckenmiller, Dr. Patrick Druckenmiller, was pretty excited to have me on the team. And I spoke with everybody in the lab of Museum of the North, like, oh, I've been around the US and around other parts of the Americas. And everybody was super enthusiastic. They were like, oh, we'd love to have somebody else in the lab, etc. And you seem like a pretty good addition. And I thought about it for like a week. And I even started my semester in Dickinson in North Dakota. I was like, I think I'm going to go to Alaska. I lived in a really small apartment then. I still live in a small apartment now. But I was like, I think I can pack everything in 2 days. I can pack everything in 2 days, leave for Fairbanks. I'll be just a week late at classes, but I'm willing to do this. And that's the story. I moved to Alaska. I went to the lab, I went to classes, I registered. I was super late on everything, of course, but it was so cool and absolutely worth it. It's beautiful. It's so, so beautiful. I had lived in Anchorage for a while, but never to Fairbanks. I had never been to Fairbanks before. It's really small, but it's totally worth it.
It's a beautiful place. I know me and my family went to Alaska a few years back. I don't know. The past like 6 years have just kind of been one long year. So just somewhere between 2020 and now. I want to say December of 2023, but nobody quote me on that. Not important. Not important. We went to Seaward, Anchorage, blanking on everywhere else. The big ones, the big cities along the southern coast.
All the 3 big cities from
where the people are.
Yeah.
But of course, there's some stuff there, but the main big site that Alaska is known for is the Prince Creek Formation, way north. What are some of? I don't know if you've been there. I think from what I've heard from you, you haven't yet, but you really want to go. What would be some of the troubles of digging in an area like that and excavating in an area like that?
Yeah, so that's exactly the problems that we faced recently. We were this close to going this summer, but it was way too expensive. So for those of you who may not know, the Prince Creek Formation is the northernmost occurrence of any dinosaurs in the world ever. So that is the most polar dinosaurs that we have a record of in the world, period. Right now, Alaska, where it sits, it's just a little further south than what it was back then in the Cretaceous. So if I recall correctly, the Prince Creek Formation was at latitude 80. And it's a big package of rocks. So the northern slope of Alaska, which is about like that first third on the top, is just dinosaur bearing sediments. All of that has dinosaurs. The problem is it's polar. It's way, way, way up north. And down in the lower 48, down in Canada, down in Mexico, you have desert environments today for those rocks. So all of those rocks are being weathered away by rain, by wind, and you have basically 3-dimensional geology. You can walk around, badlands, outcrops. The Prince Creek Formation has not been eroded. It's just that much sediment, several maybe kilometers. I'm not exactly sure of the thickness, but it's a thick rock package. All that rock package is just there and unbothered because there's been no like real erosion. It's not a desert, it's a tundra. It's polar, frozen. And the only thing that erodes that rock package away are rivers. So rivers intercutting the sediment, cut completely vertical rock packages. So you only have these slivers of these rivers, and they're only vertical. You really can't like dig into the hill because it's like several meters of rock. And this is what we call the Prince Creek paradox almost is, okay, if you want to go dig, you have 2 options. You either go during the summer or you go during the winter. Oh, you want to go during the winter?
You're going to freeze to death.
Minus 50.
Yeah.
Minus 50. And the rocks are frozen solid. They're concrete. They're steel. and we can't actually dig in winter. We go with chainsaws, diamond bladed chainsaws, and just cut blocks of this like super frozen rock, make a jacket, and just we bring that to
Move
the
the whole
museum.
stone.
The whole stone. It's not until we open it that we're able to see, oh, okay, there's duckbill
Nothing.
bones, and or sometimes there's nothing. I'm like, oh, okay, there's like just a couple teeth. But it's so difficult to get up there. Or if we want to go to the summer, the rock is basically unconsolidated. What does unconsolidated mean? It's not really lithified, it's not really turned into rock. It's more like silt, sediment.
Mm.
So it just crumples into the river and gets washed down. So, oh, you want to go dig in the summer? Good luck if you don't get crushed by the whole river being cut into by the river and the water going up and down and then the sediments just collapsing in on itself. That's how difficult it is. And you want to get up there, there's no roads. You've got to helicopter it.
You got a helicopter and walk. So whatever you walk in with, you have to walk out with that +2. So
Yeah. Yeah. So during the winter, it's a little cheaper because since everything's frozen, you can go with snow machines. And the summer, you need to helicopter. But once you're there, you camp right there by the site. And that's been the problem recently. We've been like, oh, should we go? Are we not going to go? How expensive is it? And it's really expensive.
yeah, I
So
would figure.
if you helicopter it in, it's really expensive. And then how much you're going to have to carry out, that's another thing. So you don't exactly know what you're getting. It's really expensive, really difficult to get to. And it's not like you can just prospect and walk around and, oh, I see an outcrop over there. Nope. That's not really how it works.
You just gotta cut and pray. That's
Cut and pray.
I mean, you also better like hope you don't get injured in any way, because well, I don't know. Maybe if you chop your arm off in like -50, it just like freezes
It'll
over.
stay solid. Yeah.
Maybe you're just fine, but like I've never tested it. I don't recommend testing it. Let's not test it. But
And the main river that cuts through the northern slope is the Colville River. So right now we're able to see it, and it's a long rock package. It's a lot of sediment.
and of course, what kind of things can you find within the Prince Creek? What would be your like common critters, like the more uncommon ones, and then like the very rare ones, if you will?
Absolutely. So as I said earlier, duckbills galore, the cows of the Cretaceous. That's your number one finding, and there's even been a proposed genus and species of its own duckbill for the Alaskan Edmontosaurus, which is Ogrunaluk cookpecensis, which means ancient grazer. And I'm sorry, don't remember in which particular language. But Ogrunaluk is named off of juvenile material. You get a lot of juvenile material in the Prince Creek Formation, which is odd. Some people think that the record of dinosaurs in northern Alaska, especially the Prince Creek Formation, must be that these dinosaurs are migrating. And some of you that just saw the You Walking with Dinosaurs saw
Very
the
much so.
episode where, oh, it's the big migration and the Pachyrhinosaurus go up. Well, at least the Alaska crew is really doubtful of that hypothesis. We find
That,
us. Oh yeah,
that was in Alberta, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
yeah. So the Alberta crew thinks that maybe the Pachyrhinosaurus and the Edmontosaurus traveled up through the summer to Alaska, because us being in the northern hemisphere,
Yeah.
really, really up, you have basically during the summer, you have up to 23 hours of daylight. So if you're a dinosaur and you own lots of plants, it's just so many plants during the summer. If you've ever come to Alaska during the summer, it's green and it's beautiful.
Oh, very
So
much so.
yeah, the climate was different there in the Prince Creek during the Cretaceous. So right now we think, oh, it must have been like really, really snowy. Not really. It was more closer to Anchorage or Juneau. So really, really green. But the winters, it can still snow and they're still pretty cold. And you get to deal with hours of continuous darkness during the winter. So how is a dinosaur going to survive that? So again, going back, people think that they migrated south during the winter. And that's why you get these massive bone beds of Pachyrhinosaurus, which is another one of our dinosaurs here in Alaska. We have Pachyrhinosaurus perorum, which is known from a couple skulls. But there has been some misinterpreted elements of this dinosaur, the frill of Pachyrhinosaurus perorum. We used to think that the frill went a particular way, and then we found out, oh, we had it the wrong way. But that's the thing about Alaska dinosaurs. You get a lot of mixed bones. You get a lot of shearing, and the freezing and thawing of the bones cracks it and breaks it down. So your number one dinosaurs are going to be Ochrunaluk or Edmontosaurus. You're going to get Pachyrhinosaurus. You're going to get a very, very little amount of theropods or carnivorous dinosaurs. And we have the very famous Nanuqsaurus, which is known from very, very few bones. It's a frontal, a dentary, and an ascending process of the maxilla. And then we have troodontids, and we even have mammals from the Prince Creek. So recently, even some fish bones were named, naming several different species of fish. And alongside the Prince Creek Formation and all these little animals, we have the first record of a salmonid. So the first salmon ever. We used to think that salmon appeared after the KPG, so after the extinction with the asteroid. We had some fossils from Oregon of a salmonid, but now we found a Prince Creek salmon, and it just got published. So just a couple months ago now. Oh, time flies.
Yeah, it's speaking of time. Gotta love the geological time scale. But I mean, I find that funny that even within ye very olden days, Alaska still had their famous salmon that
Exactly.
everybody so loves. And of course, could you maybe? I know you said you were more. I want to say herbivores, but that's not right. Ceratopsian horned dinosaur. But you did say you did some work with Tyrannosaurs. Could you maybe talk about how some of those like Tyrannosauruses changed as you get lower? So you have like Nanuqsaurus on the top, then like Gorgosaurus, Albertosaurus kind of there, then just south is Tyrannosaurus. Fun, just all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've published and worked on Daspletosaurus. We were publishing on Daspletosaurus wilsoni, which is a species of Daspletosaurus. There's Horneri, wilsoni, and Pterosis. And in Alaska, you get Nanuqsaurus, which is known from very, very few bones. The Tyrannosaurine family, the Tyrannosaurids, have two groups mostly-ish, at least in North America. You have the Albertosaurines and you have the Tyrannosaurines. Daspletosaurus is a Tyrannosaurine, while Albertosaurus and Gorgosaurus are Albertosaurines. What's mostly the difference? Well, Alberto and their family are really gracile, They're really, really strange. They have, oh, look, in Labocania anomala, you have my skeletal from Wikipedia. And so the Albertosaurines have forward-facing horns, while the Tyrannosaurines either have lower horns or they're completely flat and have no horns at all. So the Albertosaurines have long snouts. They're really gracile. They're more like cheetahs, built for like running,
Speed and chasing.
speed, and chasing, maybe. And Tyrannosaurines seem to be more of a powerful bite, really wide jaws. And Nanooksaurus, we know from the frontal, it's a Tyrannosaurine. So it's not from the group of Albertosaurus and crew. But we just can't say enough with what we have right now about Nanooksaurus. Some people have even said that it's probably indeterminate. It's probably not diagnostic enough. It's just a few bones. How can we really tell what's going on? Some people have said it's just not a real thing. Some others have said, like, no, it's different because this piece of the bone that we have is just slightly tweaked differently. I wouldn't know what to say currently.
Do you know how many like bones we have of it individually?
We have a dennary, an anterior portion of the dennary, so the front part of the jaw. We have the frontal, so a tiny little part of the top of the skull, and then we have a little part of the jaw going up into the nose, and that's it. 3 bones.
Wow.
So it's very, very, very little.
Yeah, there's a very little going on there. It's a very small amount. As opposed to it being its own species, what else could it possibly be?
Well, we don't know. We know it's part of the Spletosaurus Tyrannosaurus family, Tyrannosaurine, but other than that, we're just not sure. There's always a possibility that it's its own thing, of course, but we would need more remains. We need more bones to exactly know what's going on. And this is where we get into a debate of what exactly is going on with the Alaska dinosaurs. So some people think that because they're so high up and they're so separated from everything else, they must be endemic to Alaska. So the Alaska species must be different. And there's some arguments there, but there's also some faults. And some other people think, well, maybe the Alaska dinosaurs are kind of what the same groups that we're seeing down in Alberta. So you get Pachyrhinosaurus, you get Edmontosaurus, and you get a Tyrannosaurine thing. But what's going on? Why are they slightly different? We still don't exactly know. I have my own thoughts, but it's a little complicated.
I mean, it's the basic. I won't call it the Hell Creek trio. I'll call it the Late Cretaceous trio. You get a Tyrannosaur, a Hadrosaur, and a ceratopsian. It follows the Late Cretaceous archetype, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then very rarely you get Ankylosaur, you'll get a Pachycephalosaur. So, I mean, even within that, and how difficult it is to dig within Alaska, I wouldn't be surprised if they were, if it was at least a mix at some point where you get these Alaskan, what am I saying? Alaskan and Albertine dinosaurs kind of in the same area, and then there's, because we know, like, from what we have of like Alberta and Alaska, we know that like Tyrannosaurus Rex wasn't super far north, but we still know it existed around the same time. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were distinct species far enough away to be considered something new.
Yeah, and that's the main argument that's going on right now. And this segues pretty well into the conflicting age dates for this formation. It has been published that this formation is 68 to 69 million years in age, according to Fiorillo et al. But then recalibrations of those dates have yielded different results. They have yielded a way older age. So Fowler 2017, for example, recalibrated those ages, and they came out really different. They came out way older by like 4 to 5 million years old. So this is the
Give or take a million years.
Yeah. This throws it into a more complicated discussion, because what we're seeming to find is that everywhere that we have dinosaurs, we have just a slightly different sliver of time being recorded. So you don't get the exact same time being recorded in Alberta than you do Montana. They're slightly offset by just a couple thousand years, a couple million years, slightly different. But then we find the dinosaurs, and they're different too, of course. But are they different because they're being found in different places? Or are they different because time has passed? And that's one of the main arguments going on right now with dinosaur paleo, is, are these dinosaurs different because they're geographically separated? Or are they different because it's been a couple thousand or million years since the previous rock record? And again, they look almost the same dinosaur. They're just slightly different. So is it that these dinosaurs have giant ranges all throughout North America, or Laramidia back in the day, the western part of North America? And the reason why they're different is because they're a different time. And that's why they're so similar. They're just a tiny little bit tweaked. But is it because of geographic reasons, or is it because of temporal reasons?
And not that I don't trust carbon dating or whatever. For those watching, don't take it like this. Comparing like dating like that from a place like Montana, then Alberta, then like the Prince Creek Formation, those have very drastic weather differences, environmental differences, preservation differences. South to north, it's like easy mode to like impossible. Like to pretend like, oh, I can just pick up this hunk of triceratops off the ground pretty much in Montana versus like, okay, we have to go out there, cut it out of a wall, let it defrost, then slowly excavate it, and then think that the results would be the same. I would expect a few million years possible with error within carbon dating from anything from Alaska.
That's a great question. So this is where I hope we don't lose the crowd, but we're going to talk about chemistry. I hate chemistry.
With you.
But this is where we have pretty reliable dating methods because, well, carbon dating, for example, carbon dating basically tells you how a carbon atom decays from carbon 14 to 13. And after 10,000 years, carbon 14 is completely decayed. So carbon 14 is only used for 10,000 years or younger. For dinosaurs, We use way crazier elements. We use stuff
Yeah.
like argon, and we use stuff like uranium lead
Uranium
dating.
dating.
We use potassium dating. And these elements decay way, way, way slower. So how can we date something? How do we know the age of a rock? So we take that little atom and they have different isotopes. So isotopes are just they have one or one less electron. I know this is already boring. Stay with me. And the atom basically gets cut in half of the atoms get cut in half. And then okay, half the time has passed, and then another half, and then another half, and then another half. And you basically count how many of it is missing in total. And you go, okay, for all that to have happened, 70 million years must have passed. Imagine somebody goes into your kitchen and eats half of the cake that's on the table each week. And then one day you just come back home and only a quarter of the cake is there. So you have all the cake, half the cake, half the cake. How many weeks have passed? 2. That's basically decay dating. So it's really, really reliable. Of course, there's still a big wiggle room into how these dates vary and change. And sometimes potassium, like uranium that lead dates won't line up with argon dates. They're going to be different, and that's
It happens.
you have these slight inconsistencies of just a couple thousand years or 500,000 years. So when you get these dinosaurs and these ages, they can be pretty reliable. It's just which method are you using and how are you processing the data?
And I mean that's also just the one part that what do you mean? That's even something that like baffles me a little bit. I'm like, what do you mean 60 to 70 million years? That's a pretty big gap. 60 to 70 years? Sure. It's like 10 years. You're talking about 10 million years here.
Million years.
Which is very fun. Because I mean, a lot of people just think it's like, oh, you just look at the geology, it's in this layer of rock. So we say it's the whatever period, the Cretaceous period, the whatever of the Cretaceous period. You go down, next one, but it's like, you can. You get very generic answers. You don't get dates to be exact or anything. You can do that, but like in a lot of places, it's not going to just like, the earth ain't flat.
Yeah, it's really complicated. So
moving.
When speaking to biologists, for example, not paleontologists, they're like, oh yeah, you put the fossil in like the dating machine and it gives you an age, right? And it's like, no, it's way more difficult. And these are just like dating the rocks above or below the dinosaur remains. So sometimes what happened with Tyrannosaurus macarensis from, was it New Mexico? Was that they said that Tyrannosaurus macarensis was from 72 million years ago from the rocks of New Mexico. And they only had a date. So there was an ash layer here and Tyrannosaurus was found here. So what you normally do is ash layer, dinosaur, ash layer. And that constrains the age. And that's why you say, oh, they lived from this to this, maybe-ish. But with Tyrannosaur, the other T-Rex species from New Mexico, they only had a bottom one. And they said, oh, it's 72. And the dinosaur's right here. So that must mean that the dinosaur's 72. They redated some stuff, found an ash layer above that constrained the dinosaur. It's like, oh, it's 69 and 68. So the ash layer, of course, the bottom ash layer is older, but the dinosaur was way younger. So I think that's another reason why some ash dates are different. Or it's just, you need more data. Go find those ash dates. Go to the Prince Creek. Dig them up. Grab the ash, put it in a little thing, and then we go into the lab. So all we need is more data.
How reliable are ash dates in the Prince Creek Formation? Like,
We've
how
started to
often? Yeah,
find a lot.
how much data do we actually have on it though?
Exactly. We used to think that, oh, it's not a lot of data, et cetera, et cetera. And recently we found a lot more ashes that better
Good.
constrain the bone beds.
And
So,
it has that, and I mean, because the Troodontid in Alaska, I'm surprised they ever found that thing.
yeah.
But has those ash dates done anything for determining if they're their own individual species up in Alaska, or
Well, I can't say anything about that yet. But all I can say is stay tuned to Alaska stuff. Some research is going to come out, and I just can't say anything about that Troodontid.
because I mean, I always already think about like, okay, think about like how many few specimens of like tiny Paravian dinosaurs, Archaeopteryx. There's like what, 12 of them, 13? There's not that many. Troodontids aren't, not massive. They're relatively small in terms of dinosaurs. In somewhere as harsh as like the Prince Creek Formation, what other things are we just kind of ignoring? Like,
We fear that that might be the case, but or we used to fear that might be the case, but previously, after grabbing these big blocks that we have, first few expeditions, okay, we've gotten all the big bones out. That's it. That's the lifespan of that jacket and that sediment. But Dr. Patrick Druckenmiller said, like, no, wait. Let's still use the sediment. Let's look for microfossils. And what I mean microfossils, I mean super duper microfossils, tiny, tiny little things. And that's what most of the people in the lab, the volunteers, and just everybody does is pick through the sediment. So you've got all these like buckets of just silt, and you grab a little paintbrush and look through a microscope and pick through the material. And we have found a lot of stuff. Most recently, Lauren Wilson published a paper on neonate toothed birds from the Prince Creek of Alaska.
oh,
She found so many teeth, beak, bones of freshly hatched little toothed dino birds.
wow.
And this is what has helped fight the discussion of, are they migrating? We have found neonates, so freshly hatched dinosaur embryo bones from the
Which would
Prince Creek Formation.
probably mean nesting site
Nesting.
relatively close.
Exactly. Otherwise, how are you going to, if the tiny little babies are there, and I mean tiny, tiny, tiny bones, if they're there, they're nesting there. Like,
Yeah.
are you going to migrate with something this big through Alaska to Alberta? That's impossible. What about nesting cycles? Like, the arguments are, well, the tiny, 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 freshly hatched babies that really can't walk, that are nest bound for months, are walking from Alberta or walking down. That's just not possible.
Yeah, something adding up there.
So we are trying our hardest to like pick through absolutely every single grain of sand just to discover, oh, there's tiny little bones that we can find here.
And I mean sometimes it's the little things.
Sometimes it's the little things.
Sometimes it's the little things. You never know. One small discovery could change everything. I mean,
Absolutely.
who knows? Today it could be juveniles. Tomorrow it could be, oh, look at this entirely new tiny bird that was split in half by lightning or something. Who knows? Like,
Yeah.
it's because people usually don't how should I word this? Don't address microsites as much. And I don't know if it's just because they're microsites, so people are just uninterested. But they really form a lot whenever it comes to discussing ecosystems and food webs and God knows what else. So I mean, I don't know what kind of plant diversity y'all have found in Alaska. Could you maybe talk on that a little bit if you know anything?
Yeah. In the Prince Creek of Alaska, we found I don't know much about this since I'm more of a dinosaur person, but I know that it's highly vegetated. We found some foot tracks, we found some plant imprints, and we know it had tall trees, thick trees, a lot of ferns, a lot of ginkgos, so pretty vegetated. We know it's not a barren, like, you look out in Fairbanks and it's just like tundra. There's nothing. There's a couple of big trees, but it would have been heavily forested in the Cretaceous.
Interesting. And I mean, forest calls for, birds, maybe smaller mammals that climb those trees. Maybe something missing between birds and dinosaurs? Some kind of Paravian species? Who knows? If that's ever found, those are already rare enough as is. So, and I mean, God knows about pterosaurs discovered there. And
yeah, I don't think we have yet any pterosaur stuff. We've just got to keep looking.
Let's see. Maybe Denali, an unnamed species of Denali pterosaurs, an unnamed species. Actually, I think that might be. No?
There were some foot tracks found of a possible pterosaur in Denali National Park.
Yes.
But I've seen the tracks. They look splodgy. I can believe it. But
no bones.
No bones yet from the Prince Creek.
No bones, so no hard fact quite yet.
We could still look for more footprints and maybe find better footprints. So
yeah, this is the footprint that they're looking at. I'll pull this up.
That's a pretty good hand, actually. So they walk like this.
I mean, that's a little
1, 2, 3. But again, it's not,
it's not much.
The hand like this, the wing would like fold back and walking on 3 toes, but
it's not much.
It's just one track. There's still way more to find.
And then, I mean, if you can find that, then wicked. Denali pterosaur. And I mean, even within here, let's see if I can pull this up too. Even think about like it probably won't be, well, maybe part of Alaska, but like the Western Interior Seaway all the way up here. Probably be farther northeastern Alaska, not Prince Creek Formation. But I mean, think about like marine reptiles and saltwater, freshwater. There probably was some kind of water source up there. That's hence why you have animals up there. They need water to survive. They can't drink salt water, so there has to be some kind of freshwater source somewhere up there. Freshwater animals, maybe turtles, alligators, who knows? I mean,
that's the thing. We lack any turtles or alligators or really any cold-blooded animal fossils at all. Why would that be? It's way too cold for them.
Absolutely.
We're missing some pretty big fish groups too, just because it's so cold. So we have no turtles, no crocodiles, no champsosaurus. It's a very unusual assemblage of animals.
I mean, no Spinosaurus for sure. You're not going to find any up there, but
oh no,
if you do, that will change the face of dinosaurs as we know it. that will put a giant curve in everybody's guessing. But I mean, the Western Interior Seaway isn't. I say it's not that far. That's probably like 100 miles right there, but it's close enough to consider the possibility of marine reptiles in some sense, or just marine animals in general. Who knows?
And that's, I think, one of the most infuriating parts is we actually don't have any rock record from in between the top part of Alberta up to the Prince Creek of Alaska. We're missing all of those rocks that are the in between.
So what happened there? I mean,
Just plain and simple, no deposition, no rocks being deposited, no sediment being, laid during the Cretaceous. Just like the same reason why the eastern coast doesn't have that much dinosaurs. Rocks were not being made, so sediment, all these dinosaur-bearing units that we find used to be sediment slowly accumulating on these basins of, within the continent. So you have deltas and rivers, and thankfully, this is where you get into tectonics and geology. The plate from the Pacific was subducting under the North American one, creating mountains, and those mountains eroded away, created particles to be deposited on the Western interior. What was going on in Appalachia and the Eastern United States? No subduction, no mountains being created, no deposition of rocks.
yeah.
So that's why you only get Dryptosaurs, you'll get very, very few, and they're like completely marine. There
We
are
get a
some
lot of
sediments,
marine life. We get a lot of
marine
mammals
sediments, yeah,
from that. We don't.
but
We got the
you don't get
mammals.
those dinosaurs because
Oh.
the same thing. No rocks are being deposited, no sediment is being deposited.
I mean,
And
off the top of my head, I think we have 2, maybe 3 hadrosaurs. Dryptosaurus. We have Appalachosaurus. Dilophosaurus up in Connecticut. That's pretty much our roster.
yeah, and compare that to the western part of North America.
Oh yeah, it's very sad.
And it's because of the same thing. No sediment is being accumulated anywhere. No basins, no sand just to be deposited, no uplift of rocks created, nothing. So during the Cretaceous, that's why you get so few dinosaurs.
And I mean, it's probably not even that they weren't here either. I wouldn't think that they just wouldn't be
Dinosaurs
here.
must have been in the eastern part of North America, and they must have been as diverse and as proliferate as the western part. But it's just what we call sampling bias. So, what's sampling bias for you who might not know is the distinction of collecting data and where you're collecting data. So, absence of evidence is not evidence, is evidence of absence. If you're not finding any dinosaurs in the east, that doesn't mean no dinosaurs lived on the east part of the US. No. It's just that the rock record of the east is just not there.
It's not good to preserve them, or
Not good to preserve.
not
So
there.
imagine the rock record is somebody just drawing all the dinosaurs they see. And the rock record in the west part of America was just drawing all of them. And the one in the east, oh, my pen ran out of ink. I can't draw.
Yeah, it's
Did not record them.
get a few rare ones here and there. We'll probably get a few more in the next 250 years or whatever, but we're not going to get much. But
Exactly.
And I mean, you think about it, like it's weird because every formation, yeah, is prominent with something, but like the Hell Creek, it's famous for the Late Cretaceous. You got T-Rex, Monosaurus, Triceratops, Ankylosaurus, Pachycephalosaurus. yada yada yada, etc., etc. We know the late Cretaceous, we love it, but like that doesn't mean that area didn't exist during the Jurassic or the Triassic. Like it would still have been there. Just those things are buried deeper or in different areas or just not preserved. So I mean,
Absolutely.
I think about that for all kinds of places where
Or maybe
there
they just
aren't.
got eroded away after 66 million years. So this is while doing field work in Montana, you see this vast plain with all the wheat fields. Under all of those wheat fields is just kilometers of dinosaurs. They just haven't been exposed.
Yeah, it's. I'm honestly more surprised that they're. Well, actually, not really. There's tons of stories where it's just like some farmer. He's like, yeah, I was like digging and I just found this thing. Y'all guys want it?
Yeah,
Can y'all study it? Name it
that
after
happens
me.
a lot. Sometimes you have to really dig to find those rocks, or sometimes those rocks were there, but that was before humans, and then those rocks all got turned into dust, including the dinosaur remains.
As sad as it is, the dinosaur remains are not immortal.
Exactly.
Impervious?
But we still find Cambrian stuff, and Cambrian
Oh yeah.
fossils are like 550 million years, so it's fine.
What kind of pre and post dinosaur stuff do y'all find within Prince Creek up in Alaska?
The Prince Creek, if I recall correctly, only captures the Cretaceous part,
Hmm.
and I don't believe we have any Paleozoic stuff from the top of my mind
Really?
in Alaska. The rocks must not be exposed.
That's really surprising considering that would be like the direct place where like Russia and the United North and North America. That's what I'm trying to say. We're
Those
getting into
rocks must exist, but they must just be really under. I I don't know exactly if they exist or not.
because
I know
it's
we have a Helicoprion in our collections, but I'm not entirely sure if it's from Alaska. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I know there are some rocks from the Triassic in Alaska, but I don't think we have any fossils in them.
extensive rock formation, particularly limestone and shale, containing fossils like corals, brachiopods, and trilobites.
So limestones are usually formed in, barrier reefs. Limestones are calcium carbonate that has been deposited. So corals are made out of calcium carbonate. When they break down, they turn into fizzy sand. And
So
shale is just mud, deep, deep marine mud. So we must have some rocks, but they must not be terrestrial. I think I recall we have some ichthyosaurs from Alaska, but I'm not sure if those were published.
oh god, this map is gonna look like a yeah, maybe not pulling up that one. Let's do this one. It's a little cleaner. Not really. Wow, finding non-blurry images is very, very fun. I love it. Here we go. This works. So obviously, there are very famous sites within where you get your dinosaurs and all that. Actually, can I just open this? And yeah, I don't know why I didn't do that. Think smarter, not harder. But I like to think harder, apparently. Uh, so obviously, you get a lot of Cenozoic, Paleogene. You have the Mesozoic points with like Prince Creek, Denali. You have things like that. Paleozoic.
Oh, they're just in the mountains. So we have three mountain
Yeah.
ranges in Alaska. Alaska's shape is like this, right? So you've got the little Aleutians, you've got Juneau right here, and then Anchorage right here. Fairbanks is right here. We have three mountain ranges at the top, a smaller one in the middle, and then in the bottom, the Brooks Range. Um, the Jurassic rocks are only here. And what that tells me, I'm not particularly super knowledgeable of what's going on with the geology of Alaska, but the rocks must be there. They must just be super under the earth.
Yeah,
The uplift of the mountain must have brought all of those rocks from the deep up.
they're taller mountains, which usually means that they're younger. So it could just be it's a place where people don't want to go dig, a place where people can't go dig, or just hasn't been exposed yet.
I know we've gone several times to the mountains for Triassic material, and we have found ichthyosaurs up in the mountains, but that's about it.
We have some Triassic over in the eastern part here, a very slightest little dot here and there.
But then, are those rocks terrestrial? Are they marine? What exactly are they preserving? So that's the main issue. So you might have like, oh, we have a lot of Jurassic rocks. Oh, they're all marine. And we got a lot of ammonites. I think I've got a few ammonites. A few. It might be Cretaceous though.
Ammonites and trilobites seem to be.
This is a belemnite here from Alaska. So this is the inner shell of a little squid. So you squid this big. And I have a few other things. It's a little chunk of an ammonite. You can see the sutures. So there's been a little spiral guy. But these were found in the mountains. So pretty difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, even within that, yeah, is it terrestrial? Is it marine? Is it preserved?
Exactly.
Look at this one. There's like I see 2 dots of Precambrian or Proterozoic. I want to say those are probably Precambrian, not Proterozoic. If I'm looking at that color key right, I would say Precambrian. But like, what's there? What would you find? What could you find?
Well, are you going to find any fossils? That's the thing.
Yeah.
They might be deep marine and there's nothing. And that's the case with most rocks, unfortunately. Most rocks might be just super deep marine. They might be carbonate shells. They might be, you never know until you go on prospect.
Yeah, and I mean, it literally comes down to, did anything preserve there? Did anything die there to be preserved? Because I think about, like, you have the entire vast ocean with billions of all these animals, but it's like, okay, obviously there's more ocean than animals. Are you going to get a dead animal on every square inch of the ocean?
Exactly.
Probably not. So, I mean, you're not, if that part of the ocean somehow rises, is there something preserved there?
Yeah, that's the difficult part. Some places have a lot of like Cretaceous rocks. They just don't have any fossils. And if you want dinosaurs, you need a terrestrial environment to be preserved. And terrestrial environments are way more difficult than just deep marine rocks. Deep marine rocks are just going to be shales or mudstones. Not much is there.
Is it preserved? Did something die there? Is the rock good? Period for preserving. Yeah.
Or for example, if they're metamorphosed, so 3 types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Metamorphic are either igneous or sedimentary rocks, igneous being volcanic, sedimentary having fossils, being dirt that accumulated. Metamorphic rocks are rocks that have been deformed by heat and pressure. So over here in Fairbanks, we have a lot of Devonian rocks, so many Devonian rocks, but they're all metamorphosed. So that means they've been turned into something else, squished and smushed with heat and pressure, and brought back to the surface. Fossils are destroyed. So all these Devonian rocks don't have anything. They're just smushed and squished. So that's another thing. The rocks might be the right age, but have they been deformed? Have they been metamorphosed? And I think that's why geology is so cool. Geology is my strong suit. I love geology. But that's the thing.
Yeah, it's a very important part to paleontology.
Yeah,
It determines all of it. So I mean,
absolutely. People who ask like, "Oh, how can I get into paleontology?" I tell them, "Don't ignore geology. Paleontology
yeah.
is the marriage of biology and geology. You can know all the dinosaur groups, but if you just don't understand geology, paleo is going to be inaccessible.
How they preserve, where they would likely preserve,
Or
where
how
you'd
the
want to search, how
fossils
to
got
dig.
deformed. There's a lot of fossils that are just deformed, and people think like, "Oh my god, it's a new species because it looks different." And it's like, a
I
geologist
also
can go and look at it and be like, "Oh, it's just been deformed."
then you also have the biology side of that, where it's like, okay, we see deformities in modern animals. Did that occur in
Yeah,
dinosaurs? Could
yeah,
that be a reason
pathologies,
why we think?
individual variation. So if you just go knowing geology, you're gonna struggle with individual variation. You're gonna struggle with evolution. You're gonna struggle with population genetics, with how an animal looks, ontogeny even. So how animals change as they age. If you don't really understand biology, that's going to be hard. And if you don't understand geology, you won't understand fossil record, what's being preserved, what isn't. Some people say like, "Oh my god, the in the Prince Creek Formation, 60% of the dinosaurs are triceratops. That means that the whole formation was littered with triceratops." Is that the case? Or is that maybe a sampling bias? Are they only being found there because the conditions are right for Triceratops to die there? Oh, and Canosaurus is the rarest dinosaur in the late Cretaceous. Is that true? Or are they just not going to the environments where fossils are being made?
And even with like just how an animal acts, triceratops are, from what we have gathered, are relatively solitary. Pachyrhinosaurus was not. So it's like, okay, you have a giant herd of 300 Pachyrhinosaurus that all die in a flood. They all get washed out and die in a flood. That like, okay, it's like a Pachyrhinosaurus like flood death excavation. You're not likely to find other things because you're not excavating just like an ecosystem. You're excavating.
Absolutely.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
most centrosaurs, so most dinosaurs, horned dinosaurs with a big nose and short rounded frills, Centrosaurus, Styracosaurus, Pachyrhinosaurus, Ionosaurus, most of them are known from bone beds, from giant mass mortality event bone beds. While the Chasmosaurs, the long frilled big brow horned dinosaurs,
you get Triceratops, Torosaurus, Chasmosaurus,
Pentaceratops,
Pentaceratops.
Casmosaurus, all of those guys are known from like single individuals. We've never found a bone bed really, but
Yeah, I
Centrosaurus,
would.
we have lots of bone beds. So what exactly is going on?
It, is it something with like just in the genetics where they just really want to be solitary? Is it just because we didn't find bone beds? Is it because like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, okay, we only find Triceratops individually, therefore they're only individual. They probably were in small herds.
Yeah.
They probably looked after the young to some ever so slight extent. I doubt like they were like sauropods where they just drop a billion of them and sea turtle them. But on the other side of that, it's like, okay, we only find them in large groups. That doesn't mean there's not going to be the solitary individual that's like gonna go tough it out or whatever and be different. Like I,
Yeah,
you think
there
about
are
that with
little
people.
there's lots of big questions still in paleontology, and we just don't exactly know.
Like, are there big question for paleontologists? Are there introvert and extrovert dinosaurs? Who knows? Like, genuinely. I mean, I think about, like, even to the extent of, like, possible adoption of, like, the other species. It's very unlikely, but, like, if a young triceratops were to be separated from its mom or dad, if they are, and they come across like a herd of Edmontosaurs, would it just follow them?
That's one of the big questions of behavior that we just won't exactly know. And this is something that is a big thing in paleontology. Most of these things are hypotheses. A
Oh yeah.
hypothesis is not like, oh, this is set in stone. No, it's how we think that things work. And sometimes you have what we call multiple competing hypotheses. What this means is we have two ideas that compete with each other, but we just don't have the evidence to say, oh, this one's wrong and this one's right, or the other way around.
Like I would say at the extreme, 95% of paleontology is all hypothesis. At the minimum, like 50%. This is the one science where you should expect somebody to look you in the eyes and go,
Basically, this is mostly how science works because, for example, you can't really prove gravity. How do you prove gravity? I mean, yeah, things fall, but are
what
you
does that
proving
mean?
gravity, or are you adding adding data to a hypothesis that just makes it really, really likely?
They're on to me. They only turn it on when I drop things. The government's after
Exactly.
them. Like,
But that's basically how science works. It's not like you don't prove things in science. You don't say, "Oh, this proves that." No, no, no. You don't do that. You have a hypothesis and you work from it. You don't prove things. You add evidence that makes something more likely. So
and
you can have like, oh, the nanotyrannus debate.
oh,
Well,
oh yeah.
we won't really be able to say like, oh, it's set in stone, it's done, it's final. Not really. That's just not how science works. Oh, this proves this. That's not
Like,
really how it works.
yeah, you can the one thing that we can accurately prove, assuming you have an entire articulated skeleton of, let's use just screw it, Pachyrhinosaurus right now. It's Alaska dinosaur. Well, funny, you find in like the Pachyrhinosaurus in Alaska. There's a few things that you can confirm. Okay, it was found in Alaska. It means it
Basically.
died in old Alaska, in an old version of Alaska. It's a dinosaur. Yeah.
Basically. That's
Everything else is like what, like just whatever. I mean, there could be an entire lineage missing of God knows what.
oh,
Because I
absolutely.
think about
That's what I think is going on with the eastern dinosaurs. The dinosaurs from the east of North America. There's a reason why they come out like in the big phylogeny and the tree of life. They come really through the base because they're not related to all of that we have. They're something else. And those lineages, we just don't have evidence for.
and look at like Pachycephalosaurus. Look how
Pachycephalosaurs are
tiny.
scattered.
Look how tiny their tree is. I mean, compared to everything else, there's like nothing there. I mean, so why are there so few of them? Are these the only, like, these are probably not the only species. I'm willing to say that there's probably more than these. I would be willing to bet everything I have right now to say that there's at least one more Pachycephalosaurus genus out there somewhere. But like, why aren't they found as much? Is it because of an environment? What about things where things don't preserve?
Exactly.
mountains, let's say.
Mountains. We
It's a
suspect.
working hypothesis that I've heard and I personally love, but like maybe they take on like a mountain goat like niche. Maybe some pachycephalosaurs love the mountains. You're not going to get them preserved. Things in mountains don't preserve well. So I mean, it all comes down to like what really preserves.
Yeah, what environment are you taking a screenshot of with the rock record? So, for example, we find a lot of swamp environments. That's where we find most dinosaurs. The Hell Creek is a swamp. So we're finding a lot of Triceratops. Maybe Triceratops just like the swamp. And Ankylosaurs didn't like the swamp, and that's why we have so few Ankylosaurs. It could be the other way around. Maybe Triceratops was just not adapted to swamps. And when they got to a swamp,
Or they're all
they
dead
die
there.
and get stuck in the mud. And that's why we have so many. And it's up to us paleontologists to see, to analyze the data. And of course, these are not just guessworks. This is not just like, oh, I think the dinosaurs flew around in the atmosphere, and when they died, they dug themselves into the ground. No, it's really, really educated guesses with a lot of data backing them up. So
It's also
every so often we
very
fine tune our hypotheses even more.
within paleontology. It's very difficult to get any everyday life, if you will. Occasionally, you get the conflict, the dueling dinosaurs, both examples with the whatever species of Tyrannosaur. Not touching that one with the 10-foot full quite yet. Then the ceratopsian, you get the protoceratops and the velociraptor. These are very, very rare. Those do not come out of the earth every day. Those are like some of the top most rarest whatever. If you found one of those, you got money. You sell that thing, you got money. You're set. But like you're not gonna find an example of like here we excavated it and it shows a ceratopsian grazing. It's like how did it die? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
just
And
like instant
it
sediment.
it whittles down to like the environment. Why are the dueling dinosaurs or the fighting dinosaurs, the Mongolian raptor and the Proceratops, why are they preserved in battle? And that's where geology comes in. With the geology, oh, it's a dune environment. It's what we call an aeolian system. It's a desert. And the deposition in that environment is giant sand dunes and sandstorms. So these animals were probably fighting and then just covered in sand immediately. And
So
that's
that's
why they're still
why
like that.
volcanic activity, dust storms. I'm a little more skeptical of snowstorms because sand doesn't melt, snow does. So snow probably doesn't quite have the same effect as sandstorms, but probably to some extent,
It's
maybe.
a snowstorm would be like a big rainfall. It creates a lot of weathering and might take some animals, might move them somewhere if they're dead, but it doesn't capture it in the rock record. It's like a
Yeah,
flood. Maybe there's a giant flood, washes a bunch of Pachyrhinosaurus, they all die. But we need the sediment. We need the sand, we need the silt, we need the clay to cover them. If they're not covered, goodbye. They'll just rot away.
volcanic activity and mass extinctions are your best friend. Like that's. Uh, I think about anywhere there's like a volcano, how much better something would preserve because, well, and even then, depending on the type of volcano, did it spew a bunch of ash and just cover everything instantly? Or did it like kind of spurt some lava out and then just let it flow? Like, one's going to give you a lot of preservation, the other one, not so much. I mean,
Exactly.
so it all comes down to like preservation
And
bias, preservation, how it
again,
where.
geology, the rock record, and that's why it's so important to have geology as a complement to the biology for paleontology.
And it's just flabbergasting. I mean, because you get like stegosaurs, they just kind of vanish after the Jurassic. Not that who knows? Maybe they didn't. Working theory. Maybe they went south with everything else and went to South America. Maybe they went east. Who knows? I mean, but like, it's very weird for something like that to just disappear completely without an entire mass extinction of just like that specific tree. It's very weird.
Yeah, did they just get outcompeted? Did they get outcompeted by ankylosaurs? Did something in the environment
Ceratopsids.
change that maybe the plants that they fed on just disappeared? And there's lots of stuff like that. So I don't particularly know much about stegosaurs, if I'm gonna be honest. That's a reason why I don't really like them, because I'm like, oh come on, you died in the early Cretaceous out of nowhere? Come on.
Yeah,
But
it's very sad.
why? I don't really know, and I don't think we know. We may know. That's something or for example, centrosaurines and chasmosaurines. This is something I do know. Triceratops. It's at the very, very end of the Cretaceous. It saw the asteroid hit and everything. But we don't have any centrosaurines. We don't have the group of Pachyrhinosaurus. We think it goes extinct just before the end. Why? That's generally something we don't know.
And I mean, even within that, that's like the whole like people misconcept that misconstrued that all the time. They think the asteroid hits and it's just like everything's dead. It's covered, is dead. We're done. It hit. If you're next to it, right under it, you're probably one of the lucky ones. You get vaporized, you're gone, you don't got to deal with anything else. All the other ones that are like, say, in Alaska or really far north, Montana, Albertosaurus, or Alberta, not specifically just Albertosaurus, but yes, also Albertosaurus. For those that do survive, like ash being thrown on them and whatever, it goes nuclear winter. Like
Absolutely.
Like
It goes
sun's blocked
full
out,
on
no
nuclear winter.
sunlight, fire and brimstone raining from the heavens, like just like
Yep.
biblical apocalypse, pretty much. Like we're talking darkness everywhere. They
Big herbivores are gonna need all those plants. Not enough sunlight, not enough plants,
die off.
not enough herbivores, not enough carnivores,
Then die. The carnivores then
and it
die.
just collapses.
So it's like you can mark when the KT extinction like happens. You're like, okay, it happened 66 million years, 66, 65 million years ago, and it was like, boom, all right, that happened. You can see the crater. You can probably get sediments there and calculate that. I've never actually looked at if they have been like, yeah, it's this. I'm still waiting for the day where we can get that more specific, and they're like, yeah, it was like a Tuesday at 12, so it just really sucked.
We almost got there if a paper was published, something looking at sediments of like just something with ash fall from the meteorite, from the iridium layer, and somebody had concluded that there were some pollen grains that only appeared during the spring, so that the meteorite probably crashed
Wow.
during the spring. But then it turns out that he mixed his results and that the data wasn't right. So we were that close. So what we say is just we need more data. We need to go out and dig some more. Something that we always say is that, like, some people say, like, oh, let's run new analyses. Let's run, oh, I bet if we run this model on the pre-existing data, we're going to... Nope. Let's go out there and dig some more. That's what we need. We just don't need to run the same numbers. Oh, let me see if they run differently this time. No. Let's go out and dig. We need more data. More.
This is the definition of insanity. Just repeating something.
You're repeating the same thing.
And I mean, within science, of course, you want to be able to recreate what you have, which is why paleontology is so unique, because you can't necessarily do that. You can't find the same specimen on repeat forever. So it's not like you can be like, yeah, these coordinates will have this always. Like, not really, but something maybe along those lines in that general area. So, I mean, you think about that. I mean, it's all those species that lived probably not extremely long after, but at least I would say at most 1,000 years after. Not much longer. That's being extremely generous, but like they were still changing. I'm sure of course, there were things that survived and adapted. We're here today. I mean, we're living proof that things survived that. So, I mean, obviously, you get some of those smaller animals, Peruvian dinosaurs, mammals, yada yada, fish, crocodiles, turtles. Insert other modern species ancestor here. So, I mean, to think that it's like just as easy as, yeah, the KT extinction happened, therefore all the dinosaurs died. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Yep, and that's the thing with science. It's always more complicated than that. We always get told, "Oh, it's like it's black and white." This is the introduction to the science. This is the introduction. You get basically lied to a little just so it makes more sense when you're starting. That's always going to be the case because you go like, "Oh, all dinosaurs must be X and Y." And then you get told something, you dig in, and then you start seeing, "Oh, actually, things are more complicated than that." And that's most of the time. You get told like, "Oh, there's two major dinosaur families. There's ornithischians and saurischians." And then there comes out a competing hypothesis saying like, ornithoskeleta. And it's like, oh God, it's always more complicated.
Okay. You have the two major families. Yeah, which theory? Which one is in which theory are we talking about here? I mean, we have the basic three like clades or whatever, but like still, how are they organized? Which ones are closely related to which? And then even within that, I mean, let me just go over to Sealy here, but which is so much more aggravating to look at. No, I'm gonna pick a different one. He started it all. I give him a pass. He didn't know what he was doing. He pioneered it. But like, even then within like this one, are ankylosaurs and stegosaurs more closely related to, say, a hadrosaur or ceratopsian? Are they more closely related to a pachycephalosaur? Are they extremely closely related to sauropods for some reason? Who knows? I mean, you can determine that a triceratops is not a sauropod, but like, I can also look down and say I have feet. I mean, it's not much of a thing, but like, okay, what makes a sauropod? What makes a stegosaur? Are they related in any way? Are they the same part of the tree? Like,
and that's to even boggle your mind even more. Like phylogenies, for example, big phylogenetic analyses. People think they're the end all be all of everything. They're, oh, this is what the data says, but then, oh, actually, you code in which character is important or not for the computer to throw out. So maybe I think this character is more important than this other character, and it might spit out a completely different tree. And that's why we see very different trees all over different papers. Some people say, oh, this group is more closely related to these two dinosaurs are more closely related to each other than this other dinosaur. And then you read another paper and the tree is different. And it's because they use different data sets for their different trees. And that's why stuff is always more complicated. You think, oh, well, you just put it to phylogenetic machine and the phylogenetic machine must spit it out. It turns out to be more difficult than it, just like dating. There's not like, oh, put the fossil in the dating machine and spit it out. It's much more difficult.
Prime example is the Megaraptor. They're like, oh, they're allosaurs. Now they're tyrannosaurs. Now they're actually not tyrannosaurs. They're an early species that's closely related to tyrannosaurs. Now we don't even know how they're organized. Now, oh, we found another one. Oh, we have them in Australia, but very few. Is it the same thing as the one in South America? Oh, there's 3 in South America. How did they get from South America to Australia? Oh, they went through Antarctica. Well, what's in Antarctica? Like,
Basically, yeah.
it's, and I mean, I only think about like, was there ever an upper land bridge between Namibia and Gondwana, or the east and west of North America?
Appalachia and Laramida, yeah.
And then like the other side, the other continents, was there a land bridge there? Like, did Tyrannosaurus start here? Did they start somewhere else? That's a theory.
That's a big question.
How did they get from the west to the east? They had to have at some point, if there's a similar Tyrannosaurid on the east coast with Appalachiosaurus. What other things came over? Maybe another Hadrosaur, Ceratopsian. Willing to bet there's probably an Ankylosaur here somewhere. Pachycephalosaur, that probably, I mean, it's not going to just be a Tyrannosaur that comes over. It doesn't make sense. It's got to eat on something.
Exactly.
That has to eat on something. So it's devolves into madness very quickly. It's amazing that we've even made it this far without people just being like,
this is impossible. Yeah.
I don't know. I give up. This is very confusing. So it's like you're doing a whole project and then you figure out you missed one point and you're like, oh, I got to do it over again.
Yeah, and we're just looking at snippets of time in the rock record. So it's way more complicated than we're told initially. It's always more complicated. You think you understand it, and then you find some more data, and it's like, oh, this just makes it more difficult.
And then you get like, even within different sections. Okay, there's the 2 types of Triceratops, Porosis and
Hortus.
Hortus. I don't know why I forgot that one. That's the one I always remember. But like, okay, well, did they live at the same time? Is one a precursor? Is one just like a pre-evolutionary missing link, for lack of better words? Okay, well then there's Tyrannosaurus. You have Tyrannosaurus Rex. It lived at the same time as probably one of them. Okay, but which one? Did it ever see the other one? Did the other one ever have interactions with it? If they both did live at the same time, is there a hypothetical third hybrid species? Like,
yeah, it's always more complicated. And with Triceratops, it's one of the, I think, better examples of when we're able to see a species evolving into another through time. So what we currently think with Triceratops as a whole in the Hell Creek is that Hortus turns into Porsus. We find in the Hell Creek, in the middle of the Hell Creek, in the bottom, you only find Hortus. In the top, you only find Porsus. And in the middle, you find a weird mix. And the ones that are closer to Hortus look more like Hortus. And then they start morphing into Porsus. But then what about T-Rex? Nobody's done that same data set with T-Rex. Nobody's gone into the field and looked at all the quarries of Tyrannosaur and plotted them through the rocks and see like, oh my god, T-Rex changes with time. Nobody's done that. With Triceratops, because we have like over 200 specimens, we have. But what about Edmontosaurus? What about T-Rex? What about other dinosaurs in other rock formations?
What about other dinosaurs that we don't necessarily have a lot of?
Exactly.
Pachycephalosaur. How do we know they're not changing? How do we know the Pachycephalosaurus we have is Pachycephalosaurus?
We have so few specimens. We just need to get out there and collect more.
And it's always,
we need more data.
Always so much fun whenever some guy's like, oh, cool, look at this thing I found. It's now a new species. So you don't know studying. That doesn't know. I just want my own species. And it's like,
we should refrain from naming stuff from like super fragmentary material. It's just a nightmare to deal with.
I'm a huge fan and supporter of naming individuals because it just adds character. Sue, Scotty, Big Al 2. Dippy. I mean, like I think it just adds character and adds interest by having this unique like name to a individual. But for species, you should probably wait, study it a little bit, see what it is.
More individuals, more specimens.
They
Yeah.
compare it to everything else, and they're just like, we have no idea what this is. We're gonna say it's a new species. Have fun naming it. Like, but it always gets stressful whenever there's just somebody like, I want my name on a dinosaur, so I just suddenly discovered a new species.
Absolutely.
Because then it conjumbles everything. And I mean, I even think about, I'm a huge Allosaurus fanatic, but like recently Saurophaganax had chimerism to it.
Oh yeah, it had some sauropod bones in it, and then Saurophaganax is no more. Just a couple bones.
What other species is doing that? Is it just Saurophaganax? I highly doubt that. I mean, and then of course you have the very famous example before Saurophaganax of Brontosaurus, which is now its own thing. I don't know how I feel about reusing dinosaur names. How do you feel about that?
Oh wait, there's something I need to take care of real quick, but I'll be right back. So, about using older names or dinosaur names as a whole, what I think, this is my personal opinion, it might be a little controversial, is names are a tool for us. So, we don't have to super strict about like, oh, this is this and that's that, and oh, actually we have to change the name to, and this is something that was reflected on one of my current pieces for research with the Displetosaurus wilsoni, is we did we compiled some more Displetosaurus specimens and we ran some analyses, and the analyses gave us what we call a grade. So they're not nested in little brackets, but they're like a line, and they are found along that line. So it was Displetosaurus turosus, Displetosaurus wilsoni, and Displetosaurus horneri. And that means that Displetosaurus isn't within its little group, but instead they're part of a grade. They're part of a staircase of, of steps into an evolution. But according to phylogenetic analyses and naming conventions, you cannot have an animal with a genus, so Displetosaurus, be separated in a grade. That means the other Displetosaurus, Displetosaurus wilsoni, and Displetosaurus horneri need their own genus. A genus cannot be paraphyletic. A genus cannot be part of this step. It needs to be bracketed together to be the same genus. So when we were doing this paper, we were a little on the fence about what these results told us. They're not part of a little bracket anymore. They're part of a gradient. So Displetosaurus wilsoni and Displetosaurus horneri needed their own genus names. Now, if we give them their own genus names, that's going to make things way more complicated.
Yeah, because you can no longer just say Displetosaurus, and then that technically
You wouldn't.
different.
Displetosaurus turosus would still be valid, but it would no longer be Displetosaurus horneri or Displetosaurus wilsoni. They would be something else. We would have to get rid of Displetosaurus for horneri and wilsoni, because that's the rules. That's what the rule book says. But we didn't. We think that names should serve our purposes. They should be a tool for us. So imagine if we renamed Displetosaurus horneri into, I don't know, Tyrannodinamus, dynamic tyrant. Tyrannodinamus horneri, and we called it for the rest of our paper Tyrannodinamus. You'd be confused. You'd be like, wait. So there's a new genus now? Okay. And then if you're writing a paper on Tyrannosaurus, you're going to have to drop Daspletosaurus from Daspletosaurus horneri.
Yeah.
It's going to be Tyrannodinamus forever. So now it's going to make things more difficult to refer to that specimen, to refer to that species. So we thought we should leave it as is. We shouldn't. If we make it more complicated for everybody, it's not going to benefit anyone. So we just left it. We addressed it in the manuscript. We know that paraphyletic groups cannot exist. We should not be using Daspletosaurus. However, we're going to keep using Daspletosaurus.
Yeah.
Names should serve a purpose for us. Are you going to shoot down Brontosaurus and just get rid of it forever?
It's such a weird thing because it's like, okay, well, it's a perfectly good name. And we found a few, but here, actually, I can just see if I can. That's not the right thing. I am far off. There we go. Like, we found other apatosaurid. What are they called? Is it apatosaurid?
Apatosaurines.
Yeah, but like, and then they're closely related, Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus, and they're their own separate things now. So it's like, okay, well, that works. Brontosaurus refers to its own thing now that is closely related to Apatosaurus. It's not like they're naming a new Tyrannosaur Brontosaurus. I think that would just be stupid and wouldn't really make sense. That's just me personally. But like, it's closely related. It's a perfectly good name. So in my opinion, it's like, yeah, use it. It's probably going to confuse people because they're like, okay, a Brontosaurus, and they're thinking of Apatosaurus. And you're like, and they start talking about Apatosaurus, and you're like, well, I don't know what you're talking about because you're not talking about Brontosaurus. You're talking about Apatosaurus. This case is probably not really that drastically of a difference considering how closely related they would be, or they are. But like, even with Saurophaganax, I still call Allosaurus anax Saurophaganax all the time. It makes no real difference.
Sometimes we just can't use defunct names. We used a name for a specimen, and the specimen refers to X, Y, and Z bones. But then the name turns out to be chimera. It turns out to be something that you just can't use anymore because it gets invalidated. And there's got to be so many of the specimens. For example, Allosaurus europaeus or Europeanus, that was recently shut down. There was a paper re-examining the holotype of Allosaurus europaeus, and they concluded it's not diagnostic. And that's the same with what people suggest for Nanuxsaurus. Nanuxsaurus might not be diagnostic. That means you can't really get to keep the name. And that's why we've thrown so many dinosaur names into the trash bin. We have Dynamasaurus imperiosus. That was used for T-Rex, but that got thrown out. That used to be one of the previous names for T-Rex, and it just referred to Tyrannosaurus rex. We have Monoclonius, which is the previous name for Centrosaurus. And that also got thrown out because it was just not a valid name. So it's really nuanced when it comes to names. Saurophaganax, that specimen, that name is attached to a diagnosis. These are the features we need to look for to name another specimen, Saurophaganax. So we look for those data points. But if it turns out, oh, wait, shoot, the diagnosis for Saurophaganax is a chimera, it's a mishmash of different animals, oops. That means that the diagnosis for Saurophaganax doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I mean, since it doesn't exist, it technically would free it up for anything else to, I would say, technically have the name. So if they do discover another Allosauridae that's literally just an Allosauridae, technically they could give it the name Saurophaganax. I mean, it doesn't even technically have to be an Allosaurid. It could be anything.
And
It
that's
would
the thing.
confuse people.
Once you have a defunct name that's invalid, you can't use it again, ever.
It's just like
The Brontosaurus name was revived basically because they revisited the specimen that was called Brontosaurus, and they found that it had differences in its skeleton, and that's the only reason they were able to bring it back. Saurophaganax, because it's a chimera, it's got sauropod bones and allosaur bones all jumbled into one specimen. That's not revivable anymore. And that's why they brought Allosaurus annex.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe they'll find an entire complete Allosaurus annex, and they're like, "Oh, this is actually different." Then they could, because it's kind of what they did with Troodon, like Troodon,
the true Troodon.
Whatever we're referring to it as now. I'm so confused about that one. That one was very fun, but it's back.
Yeah, people still fight over Troodon, and the name Troodon was assigned to teeth, and then they found the teeth attached to a jaw, and then that's when they ran with Troodon formosus, the specimen. The teeth were found in this formation, and they found a jaw with teeth in the same formation, so they kept the name Troodon. The recent paper from this year, last year, I don't recall, proposing we revive Troodon is a proposal. Yeah, I think it might have been this year. It was Dave Verricchio and Montana State people. It was a proposal to revive it. It wasn't like, oh, it's back. It's like, hey, this is our attempt to solve the problem. But it's not like, oh, this is definitive. It's a proposal.
Yeah. And then, of course, all the dinosaurs that get bug names, because that happens often enough.
All the dinosaurs that get bug names.
That's the other taxonomic naming problem. We love giving them bug names because bugs get all the cool names, apparently. But
we were giving names to so many bugs, and there's so many that they occupied a bunch of names. And then we look at the literature and we talk to entomologists, the people who study bugs, and then we're like, oops. And I guess you guys have priority, so we can't use that name anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. I don't know. I think the giant scaly lizard is cooler usually, but
they got dibs, man. They got dibs.
Yeah, I guess if they're already using it, they get to keep it. But speaking of tyrannosaurids, you've been involved with work on Anagenus and the tyrant pedigree.
Oh, that paper, yeah.
Can't speak today for some reason. Specifically regarding the evolution of Tyrannosaurus line Tyrannosaurines. What is the most compelling evidence from the fossil record that supports a single evolutionary lineage leading to T-Rex, maybe T-Rex, Macranus, whatever is going on there?
So this is one of the biggest debates that's going on right now with paleontology, is how dinosaurs evolved and what's their evolutionary mode. So we have cladogenesis, which is the splitting of animals, splitting and splitting and splitting, or we have anagenesis, which is a single lineage evolving into another, a species evolving into another.
So so just giving an example of each. Clades think ankylosaurs and stegosaurs, they're closely related. They have similar ancestors, but they split with different niches. One's pokey, one's round. And for anagenesis, you have
Triceratops. Triceratops cordus.
Great example.
Caprosus. But the thing is, you can have anagenesis and cladogenesis happen at the same time. You can have a single lineage, and then there's a split. And then the single lineages keep evolving. Maybe one goes extinct. But basically, with Displetosaurs, what we're seeing is, again, this word grade, a gradient. We find Displetosaurus turosus at the very, very bottom. So rock packages. Again, think big time span of rock. The ones at the very bottom you find are turosus, and only turosus. As you start going up the rock record, these specimens of turosus start reducing their horns, making the back part of their head wider, and that's when you get Wilsoni. Wilsoni is a smaller horned, wider headed turosus. And then you get to Horneri, in which Wilsoni keeps reducing the horns, widening the skull at the back, and you get Displetosaurus horneri. Displetosaurus horneri has the smallest horns of any Displetosaurus. And it's got the widest head. And this is a hypothesis, but specimens and their placement through the rock record show that. Our hypothesis is Displetosaurus turosus evolves into Wilsoni, which evolves into Horneri. Turosus has big horns and kind of narrow jugal, so the cheekbone is not flexed, so it doesn't make the head wider. And as you go up the rock record, you do find those specimens. You start finding, the horns compared to the previous specimen that's older, shorter horns, slightly shorter horns. You go through the rock record, now this specimen has even shorter horns. It's got a wider head, slightly wider head. You go up the rock record, even smaller horns this time, even more flexed, wider head. Up more, even smaller horns. So you find links of morphology or form of how the anatomy should look like. And this is really, really interesting. And you get to see many of these specimens in other groups of dinosaurs. People have suggested anagenesis with duckbill dinosaurs. The species evolves into this species. And the specimens that you find in between in time are intermediates. Triceratops, for example. You only get Hortus at the bottom, you get Persis at the top, and in the middle, you find intermediates with each other. And that's a reason why I really like Pentaceratops, and I've been doing some work with Pentaceratops lately. It's the same thing. You find trends of evolution through time and through the rock record. So earlier we talked about how incomplete the rock record may seem, but sometimes we have a really, really complete rock record where we have very continuous sedimentation in these basins. So these big rock packages represent a really good amount of time. And as you go up, you find these dinosaurs changing, even in the same formation. So that paper was basically laying everything out and saying, like, well, if we place these dinosaurs through time, through the rocks, we don't even need dating. Big rock package. The ones at the bottom will always look like this. The ones on the top always look like this. And funnily enough, every time we find something in the middle, it looks like an intermediate. We found one here and one here, okay? What about this one? It should look like this. Bigger horn, less widened head. And we do find that. So we think we make a pretty good argument of a single lineage evolving through time. There's no splits. You don't find another species all of a sudden. It's just a species changing through time. So some people have said, well, should we then lump everything into the same species and then call it the younger species and the older species? Or should it all be the same thing? And there's some people out there who say, no, no, no. Every single little difference should be its own species. So it's a whole can of worms.
That's even a rough one, because every single little difference would be like, okay, well, this individual had its face stepped on. This one didn't.
We obviously account for taphonomy, which is the deformation, or maybe a specimen gets smushed, gets squished, or ontogeny. Animals change as they grow. So what are the changes that we would expect from an animal as they age? What do younger specimens of that animal tell us about how it changes as it grows? Some people say, like, oh my god, this specimen of Gorgosaurus has really short legs compared to all the other ones. It's also really big and really mature. And then we find the juveniles and they have really long legs. So it's like, do you think those are different species, or do you think the juveniles had longer limbs? They were doing something different in the environment.
And even within that, like, for species that we only have such few records, individualism, I'm sure, occurred. So, like, okay, what if that Gorgosaurus was just smaller, or just had smaller limbs?
Maybe it got a bad season. It didn't grow as much, and it just got stuck in a younger juvenile body plan. So with the Spleosaurus, what we did was take similarly sized skulls and put these specimens through our analyses and observe how do they change through time. And we have several figures and parts in the discussion talking about how are we finding these specimens, how are we hypothesizing that these traits are going to be changing, because we've got to remember, evolution's still a part of this. Animals just don't freeze and stay the same through millions of years.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got something such as sexual selection. If you're choosing traits such as horns that are just for display, there are bound to be differences through time of what the population is going to want. What is the trend of evolution?
And also, like, I'm curious for ceratopsids, if that, like, even for like sexual display and thing like that, if it was seasonal. So maybe one season females are looking for longer horns, longer, more robust. One season maybe they're looking for smaller ones. Maybe they're looking for ones that are broken because it shows tougher in survival combat. I don't know. But, like, how that could change an entire generation. And I mean, each one of those generations could look for different things.
Absolutely. And with time, as these trends in sexual selection continue and become more prevalent, it's going to change how the animals look through time, through generations. So, for example, with the group that I'm working on right now, let me see if I can grab this guy. Glad I have him close. So this is Pentaceratops. This part of the frill changes a lot. With the dip in the middle and the big spikes, this part of the frill changes a lot through time. So the specimens that we find lower in section, so the older specimens of Pentaceratops, have more shallow dips. The more through time you move, the younger the Pentaceratops specimens, the deeper the dip. And it goes really deep until you reach Navajoceratops. And then it's so deep that these two spikes start almost touching each other. And then that's when you get another ceratopsid called terminal cavus. And of course, these are only interpretations of the data that we have available. But more and more data is pointing towards this hypothesis being true. Anagenesis, a species evolving into another. There are several Pentaceratops specimens that show this trend, that show how the dip of the frill starts to deepen, and the spikes start moving in closer and closer. It's pretty cool. But again, this is a hypothesis. We're not married to this idea. we are able to, if a different data point is found, that's it. We can toss out the hypothesis. But every time we find a new data point, it builds upon it.
And I mean, even within that, if you just look at ceratopsians, you go all the way back to their beginning with things like Psittacosaurus and Protoceratops, some even those smaller Protoceratops. Obviously, Psittacosaurus and the other 16 species of Psittacosaurus, they don't fit that popular ceratopsian archetype with the quadrupedal, big crest, horns, yada yada. You get Protoceratops where it starts to become that. It's literally the prototype ceratopsian. But so you get that early on, and I mean, eventually, Protoceratops does appear. You get things that are more ceratopsian-like. Then those start turning into ceratopsians. And then at some point, it becomes ceratopsians, and they split. They turn into other things. You get crests and different horn shapes, and God knows what. Maybe one has quills here, doesn't have quills here. Maybe one has this pattern, and that one has a different pattern. Maybe one has lines. Maybe one has polka dots. Maybe one's purple, one's green, one's yellow, one's red. They change, they form, they become very drastically different, and those two main trees split and split again. So, I mean, I only imagine what would happen if they had another 600 million years, or God knows what they would turn into. I mean, I doubt they'd go the way of the stegosaur, but I mean, I can only imagine what they change into.
It's pretty interesting to see what the data suggests and what the trends within the fossil record that you're able to observe. And for example, with Centrosaurus, you get the horn, the nasal horn, first going upright, then curving forwards, then turning into a boss. And it's a pretty good argument for anagenesis, of species evolving into another. They go from a big horn to a curled horn to a really gnarly bump, then to a big bump, and through time. And of course, it's really difficult to make these hypotheses with animals that have a lot of time in between them.
Oh.
But sometimes these rock records are so constant or so persistent with the record that you're able to see pretty well that not a lot of time has passed. Just a couple thousand years have passed from one deposit to another. So going back to Displetosaurus, Turosis, the oldest one, is 78 million years in age. And then you get several specimens just above it in the rock record, which is just a couple thousand years later. And then you get Wilsoni in 76 million years ago. And then you get Horneri at 74. So all those tyrannosaurs that you find in the middle, that seem intermediate, are being a couple thousand years after. So how do you suggest cladogenesis, so the splitting event of something so closely related? What we think is coexistence. For example, Albertosaurus and Displetosaurus, you find them in the same rock of the same age, basically coexisted. So you're able to say, okay, somewhere in their history, they must have split from a tyrannosaur ancestor. But if you have Displetosaurus turosus and Displetosaurus horneri, and you don't have specimens that overlap, you can't say, oh, they coexisted. That's not really what's going on. The data tells you that this one is younger and this one's older. Are you ever going to be able to sample one of these species, the younger species down here? When we start digging for more specimens and digging for more specimens, we just find more of these. And if we see the specimens that we find in between each other, we found intermediates. We find specimens that fill in the gaps of what you'd expect of an intermediate to be. So this is basically, do we think they're splitting all the time? Why would they be splitting all the time? Wouldn't it make more sense, and this is what we call parsimonious, Occam's razor? Doesn't it? Why would they be splitting all the time? For what reason are they splitting? Maybe you don't really have a splitting method. You don't really have a splitting mechanism. You don't have, they're not living in different environments. They're living in the same area. And animals change through time. Populations change. So if it's something like horn length and you start finding intermediates, you make a pretty good case of, hey, maybe just the species evolved into this. Did we call it the same species? Probably not. But this is, again, where the names serve us. We're not going to name, and then the one that's just a couple thousand years later is another species. And then the couple thousand years later, it's another species. I think that's pointless. We're not stamp collectors. We don't need to this one's different because this, and so it's a new species. No. Just it's the upper species. That's it. And why these lead to Tyrannosaurus? Tyrannosaurus has no horns, has a really wide head, and starts getting bigger. And earlier in the Cretaceous, we don't see anything that really resembles Tyrannosaurus. All of them have horns. All of them have narrow-ish heads. And then Displetosaurus horneri starts losing those horns, starts just having them flatter and flatter. The head is wider and wider. The eye, the orbit, goes from being rounded to oval to really tall, just like Tyrannosaurus. And when we put these into phylogenetic analyses, it spits out, hey, Displetosaurus is slowly turning into a Tyrannosaurine. But then that's when the rock record works against us and we stop having a good rock record. So in the early Maastrichtian, the last stage of the dinosaurs, the Maastrichtian, the early part of the Maastrichtian, we stop having a good rock record. It's there's not a lot. We have some here and there, but we don't have a really good rock record. Once late into the Maastrichtian, you have a good rock record again. But by then, everything's already happened. You get the Hell Creek, you get the Lance Formation, but that's the early Maastrichtian. We have very little knowledge of. So where does Triceratops come from? Where does Tyrannosaurus come from? Where does Edmontosaurus come from? We see similar-ish stuff just before the Maastrichtian, but then we have that gap in the rock record. That gap is due to rock formations and deposition and sea levels, etc., geology-based answers. But we've got to dig for those early Maastrichtian bones. What's going on? Maybe Displetosaurus just goes extinct and T-Rex disappears out of nowhere. Maybe Displetosaurus persists, turns more T-Rex-like, goes to Asia, turns into Tarbosaurus, comes back as Tyrannosaurus Rex. What's going on? Why is the other Maastrichtian Tyrannosaur, Tarbosaurus, who has a very, very, very faint horn, why does it appear in Asia first? What goes on? The time between Displetosaurus and Tarbosaurus is a mystery to us so far. But that's something we just gotta keep digging for. What happens to that line? What happens to that lineage? Displetosaurus must somehow go to Asia and then come back as Tyrannosaurus to North America.
It's
And
also
that's
weird
yeah, yeah.
how post think about it is post Displetosaurus, there's only one American species but two Asian ones.
Suching tyrannus is slightly older than Tarbosaurus. So Suching tyrannus fills in the gap for that missing time that we have, but it's only one specimen. So we have Displetosaurus, Displetosaurus, Displetosaurus. We have a bunch of beautiful skulls. Displeto, 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 gap. Like, it's like a 2 to 3 million year gap. And then Suching tyrannus, Tarbosaurus, T-Rex.
Yeah.
So they jump really, really fast into their evolution. They go from looking like Displetosaurus to reducing the horns, but the thing is, for Suching tyrannus, we don't have the horns. We don't have a lot of bones. It's 2 bones, I think. It's the maxilla and the dennary. That's it. Do we have a dennary? I remember there being a maxilla, but the maxilla got destroyed. The holotype got destroyed, and it's all banged up. So, again, we need to go dig.
This is what we have of it.
There you go. Maxilla and the dennary. Where's the horns? We don't know what the horns look like, but I suspect they might look something between Horneri and Tarbosaurus. And we've just got to dig some more. Displetosaurus starts turning more T-Rex and T-Rex-like as time goes on. So we think the logical step is for it to turn into T-Rex. But we are missing that gap of fossils. So, does it turn into T-Rex? We don't know. I'm like 60% sure it does.
If it doesn't, then there's probably another tree.
Yeah.
Here somewhere of something else that we have just completely not found yet.
And that's one of the reasons why we think Displetosaurus must give rise to Tyrannosaurus. It starts looking more Tyranno and Tyranno-like. And if Displetosaurus isn't the ancestor to Tyrannosaurus, Tyrannosaurus can't just appear out of nowhere. It's got to have something that it comes from. It can't just pop out of thin air. So either we have a like 10 million year old ghost lineage, which would be highly unusual. Or, the dinosaur that already starts turning more and more T-Rex like turns into T-Rex. So this is where, again, we have to use Occam's razor as paleontologists, where which explanation makes more sense? Does the thing that start looking like Tyrannosaurus just turn into Tyrannosaurus, solving a 10 million year old ghost lineage? Or are they just not related at all? And just T-Rex has a 10 million year old ghost lineage that we just don't know where it comes from. Which I think is a little bit of a cop-out answer. Because otherwise, you could just do that with every other specimen. Animals just don't come out of nowhere. We see their forms, their skulls change through time.
And I think it's also very difficult to be... Because this is something that, like, I think a lot of people misconstrued about evolution, where it's like, okay, they're thinking about it. All right, Displetosaurus, yada, 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 yada. And then it's just like, suddenly one day, Zuchin Tyrannus.
Yeah.
It's like, yes and no. Because, like, this half is probably Zuchun Tyrannus. This half is probably more Displetosaurus. But, like, eventually you'll single it down to a single specimen and be like, this is the one where we don't know which one it's more like. It's 50% Displetosaurus, 50% this Zuchun Tyrannus, or whatever other in-between species. Not important. But
Yeah,
like,
and that happens a lot with the Spletosaurus. Actually, there are some people who work on the Spletosaurus who refer to a specimen, oh, this one's more like the lower one than the upper one. But then some people are like, no, 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 this one's more like the upper than the lower one. And then so there's some people who are like, no, no, we should name this like its own thing. It's like, do we really? Do we really have to like split it again? Like, and that's what we have to understand about a gradient. It's a grade. It turns into another. And that's why the middle Triceratops species from the Hell Creek does not have a name. Its horn is at the bottom, Prorus is at the top. The one in the middle is called Triceratops SP. It's just Triceratops. Species, who knows? But the reason why we haven't named it is because it's just not nameable. It's the middle Hell Creek Triceratops. Yeah, but that's it.
The important thing is Triceratops. It's both Horordus and Prorsus without being both Horordus and Prorsus. I blanking on the guy's name. The guy that put the cat in the box and is like, the cat's both dead and alive. What's his name?
Schrodinger.
Schrodinger. Yeah, it's Schrodinger's Triceratops.
Yeah, if I can share, am I able to share the screen? Are you able to see it?
Yes.
So this is exactly what we're talking about. So we start with the middle Triceratops. I mean, the bottom Triceratops. Triceratops horridus with a small nasal horn. And then as you go up, the nasal horn starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you reach Persis. And then you get the KPG. But the middle Triceratops does not have a name. It is simply Triceratops SP.
Schrodinger's Triceratops. There's its name.
Yeah, Schrodinger's Triceratops. Do you call it the bottom one? Do you call it the upper one? You can't really, because it's the middle one. And then, are you just going to endlessly split the middle one into, oh, well, this one's just a little bit more like Prorsus, so we should move it up. Oh, no, this one's more like Horridus, so we should have its own species. No. And it's the same thing for the Spletosaurus. It's just that the bottom one has its own species, the middle one has its own species, and the upper one has its own species. And that's it.
So confusing, so stressful. Love it.
Yep, that's basically paleo.
So, in your work describing new horned dinosaur material, what specific morphological and anatomical changes do you observe in the skull bones that provide new insight into how ceratopsians grew up?
So, this is a really, really good question. We know that baby or juvenile horned dinosaurs had really boring frills. They had tiny frills, and they had little horns, but they're not developed. They're not like giant. So as they grow up, we see that the frill starts to develop, starts to grow, starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the horns start getting bigger and bigger. So Triceratops, baby Triceratops, has tiny little horns and tiny little frill. And as it grows up, cords start getting bigger and bigger and start curling back. The frill starts getting longer and longer. And then the horns just change direction and start going forwards. And then the frill starts getting even bigger and bigger. And I'm currently working with a juvenile Pentaceratops, and it has some pretty cool features. So this is all still unpublished, but we're trying to get it out. I had a talk at the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology last year about this. So some of it is out there. Juvenile Pentaceratops has sideways and up going horns. So instead of like juvenile Triceratops points them back, but juvenile Pentaceratops points them to the sides and then up. And the frill, the dip of Pentaceratops and its frill is really shallow as it's a juvenile. It's really, really shallow. And the spikes are underdeveloped. So the horns change a lot position as they age. Adult Pentaceratops has them forwards. So this means that they must go from sideways and then up to going forwards. And this is something we didn't know about Pentaceratops. Pretty cool. And the frill, the dip, must deepen as they age, and the spikes that they have must develop even more and more. So, juvenile dinosaurs have less prominent sexual selective traits. Of course, that just makes sense, and that's something that we see in birds today. Animals that have sexual display structures don't develop these structures until they've reached sexual maturity. So, you're never going to see a baby deer with antlers because they're using them for sexual display in combat. And it's the same with horned dinosaurs. They don't get those fancy frills until they reach sexual maturity. They don't get those fancy horns until they've reached sexual maturity. And this is pretty cool because we knew this about duckbill dinosaurs. Duckbill dinosaurs don't get their fancy crests until they're adults and they're sexually active. And now we know that this is the case for Triceratops too. So once they've reached sexual maturity, do they develop these giant horns? So that's another point to these are sexual display structures. They're not using them for combat, for protection. If they were for protection, they'd have them all the time. If spikes in their head were, oh, I've got to defend myself from carnivores, we'd actually find the opposite. We'd find the juveniles with bigger spikes because they don't want to get eaten. They're easier to eat.
I think if anything, it would probably be like deer, where like, yeah, defense is probably a secondary just plus to having a giant spear attached to your face. I mean,
but the thing is, these juveniles don't have the horns pointing forwards. Juvenile Triceratops have them point them back. And this new Pentaceratops specimen has them pointing to the sides and then up. You're not really attacking with just horns that are to the side and up of your face. If anything, if you were using them for defense or attacking, you'd have them forwards. So you can actually use them. So they might serve a different purpose of what we think. But then adults do have those forward-facing horns. So maybe they're using them for combat between each other once they're adults and not using them for combat when they're juveniles. It's pretty interesting.
I'm curious if anything like that carries over to Pachycephalosaurus, other macronephosauri. Think I pronounced that right?
Marginocephalians.
Wow, I was way off. It's a coin in a jar somewhere, I promise. Where how Pachycephalosaurus get those domes. I'm curious if that they only get those domes bigger and more harder for headbutting at sexual maturity, and they're more softer, smaller whenever they're younger.
Yeah, that's what we think. Dracorex, Stygimoloch, and Pachycephalosaurus. Dracorex, really small, has a lot of spikes on its head and no dome. And Stygimoloch has a small dome and medium-sized spikes, and Pachycephalosaurus has a dome, but no spikes. And they're all restored. They're all little nubs. So exactly the same thing. Change through aging. As you age, your features change. And structures that you don't use as a juvenile are going to just go away. So probably Dracorex, which is invalid, and Stygimoloch, which is also invalid. They're juvenile Pachycephalosaurus. So juvenile Pachycephalosaurus was using those spikes for something because the adults don't use them anymore. And the adult Pachycephalosaurus must be using those domes for something. And it's probably some interaction with each other.
And then, of course, we also have the problem of just having none. So it's kind of hard to have that research there for Pachycephalosauri.
We have very, very few specimens.
Yeah.
So
just heavily understudied.
We have several specimens from the Hell Creek Formation, and that's basically when we have the most. So we can say about Pachycephalosaurus itself, but if we try to talk about any other species of Pachycephalosaur, shrug. We just don't know yet. We're starting to do that with Pentaceratops, where we're starting to find more and more specimens, and we're able to see how they're changing as they age, but we still need more specimens.
And I mean, it always just, I mean, regardless of if we definitively know anything, just having more specimens helps. Always. It'll either just confirm or deny whatever you're saying. I mean, it just, it's another plot point to give you a better connection line instead of like, it's like, all right, we have this line here, and then it's just like, wah.
Absolutely. We need way more data. We need more specimens. We need to collect more data. We need to go out there in the field and dig some more.
So, how does the research of the late Cretaceous dinosaurs in Coahuila, am I pronouncing that right? Mexico, Coahuila, Mexico, inform our understanding of high latitude polar dinosaurs found in Alaska's North Slope?
So this is really cool. I've gotten to work at Mexico's fossil, with Mexico's fossils, with Mexico's fossil record, and that's the southernmost tip of the subcontinent of Laramidia. And Alaska is the other way around. It's the northernmost tip of the western U.S., of the western North American continent, subcontinent. So this goes into a bigger thesis, into a bigger research project that is, how do dinosaurs change as you go up from latitude and down from latitude? Down from latitude, you get Chasmosaurians. You get these horned dinosaurs with big brow horns, long frills. While only in the north do you get the Centrosaurs, the round frilled and big nose horn dinosaurs. So there is something going on with how these animals are dispersed through North America. You'll never find a big brow horned, long frilled horned dinosaur in Alaska. It's never been found. And never has a Chasmosaur, a long frilled, big horned dinosaur, been found that up in Alaska. And the same is true. We have never found a centrosaur down in New Mexico or Mexico itself. We've not found a big nose horn, rounded frill. We just haven't. And this is where this leads to a bigger hypothesis that we have, is that the movement of the seaway, of the Western Tier Seaway, must have split north and south, restricting these animals from just going all throughout the subcontinent. So today, even, the sea level rises and falls just a little. So back in the day, the Western Tier Seaway split North America in half. So the seaway must have gone up and down too. So it goes up, it separates north and south, and that's where you have different species. But every so often, do you get a big brow horned dinosaur in the north, and every so often you get a nose dinosaur in the south. Every so often. But it's very rare. And we think this might be to the seaway. Once the seaway goes down, do these animals slightly interchange, but then go extinct pretty quick. You have Anchiceratops in Alberta that has big brow horns and a big frill, but it goes extinct. We don't find anything continuing that lineage. We have one vague idea of what could be its descendant, but they don't last. And we've not found any dinosaurs. We've not found a Pentaceratops in Canada. We've not found a Pentaceratops in Alaska. And we're not going to find a Pachyrhinosaurus down in Mexico. So there's something going on.
Is there like a weird sweet spot along the edge where there's like a combination of them?
We find some sweet spots in Alberta and Montana, and that's why you have so many dinosaurs there. but you get a quick snapshot of these two north and south groups coexisting really quickly. And this is pretty interesting. Sometimes we're able to see an intermingle of these two groups. At the very end of the Cretaceous, the seaway just recedes, and that's why you only have one of each at the very, very end. Seaway completely recedes, goes away, stops separating north from south. And eventually, someone's going to outcompete another dinosaur. And the winners of that competition are Edmontosaurus, Triceratops, and Tyrannosaurus. And the Hell Creek, you just don't get any Albertosaurus. You don't get any Centrosaurus. You don't get any Lambeosaurus. It's done. They're over. They lost. So Seaway must have separated them for a long time. Eventually, the Seaway goes away. They are able to coexist. And then, poof, it's one winner.
I'm curious if there was ever any case of like natural hybridization.
That's a question that a lot of people have asked themselves. Like, are these groups, is there a possibility for them to hybridize? And the most likely answer is no, because these animals have to go back to their nesting sites for reproduction. So if they're in north and south, the north group is just going to go to the north for their nest sites, because there's a seaway splitting them all the time in the middle. They're not going to nest in the middle, but we don't know. That's another question that people ask themselves.
I think if there is one, it would probably be very, very rare and a very one-off.
Absolutely.
Situation.
And the way you could test a hypothesis like that is, number one, you'd have to find the specimen that looks like a mix between both. Number two, it must be where both of these specimens are found. So both of these species are found. And it must resemble both. It must be temporarily the same thing. And then maybe you can make a case, but we have never found a hybrid. It is possible. We might find an overlap of the populations coexisting, and then you find that specimen in between that overlap. You can make a case, but we haven't found that specimen. So, and then again, are they going to be sterile? If they're going to be sterile, then we're not going to find them in the fossil record.
Doesn't matter. They won't breed any further past that if they are sterile. I mean, it's definitely an interesting theory. Like, I always often think about that. Like, if there is two types of like tyrannosaur, or hadrosaur, or sauropod, or whatever living together, is there a chance for them to possibly hybridize within reason? Like, I think it's definitely. I mean, the definite example of that would just be like the Triceratops, where it's like, okay, you have Paleoartist or you have Hortus. They do whatever, and eventually they're changing to Hortus. But at some point, you have something that's similar to Hortus, something similar to Paleoartist, and then you just get this like weird in between, and then eventually it just turns into Paleoartist. So I mean,
you would have to find something like the Triceratops, Paleoartist, and Hortus, but coexisting, because this is one evolving into another. But you'd have to have both these species coexisting, and then in that overlap, you'd have something. And another thing is, they have these big, fancy frills. They're choosing the frills. So if you see a frill that you just don't recognize, are you going to hybridize?
Yeah.
And that's why we don't see like, oh, pigeons hybridizing with peacocks.
Falcons. Yeah.
Or falcons, because they choose certain feather patterns. They choose certain things like moose and elk. We have both moose and elk here in Alaska, but their antlers are different. Sexual selection is different. They've chosen different traits. So if they see a frill that they just don't recognize, they're going to be like, that's not what I like. I like big, long horns. and big square frills. I don't like round frills and no horns. So that's another species selection hypothesis for these frills.
Your research addresses the biogeographic differences between the northern and southern regions of Laramidia. Can you explain how the new material you've described from Mexico, particularly your reassessment of Coahuila ceratops, supports or refutes the hypothesis of a southern origin of the Pentaceratops lineage? I cannot speak today.
Yeah, so this is basically reinforcing the idea of, this group that we've only found in the South is only found in the South. So, and it's basically a big horned dinosaur with big brow horns. Looks something like a triceratopsine, looks something like a pentaceratopsine, and this seems to, keep reinforcing this hypothesis. And in my paper, I am also an illustrator. For example, I did that Tyrannosaurus with ink. In my paper, I hypothesize, or we hypothesize. I wrote, but there's a lot of steps, and the north and south hypothesis is a continuation of the hypothesis by Denver Fowler. So we further try to talk about how these animals are differentiated from north and south and how they're varying and how these north and south differences explain how we find them.
And I mean, there's your Coahuila ceratops right there for those of you who want to look at that. But it's is this comparing it to a Pentaceratops? No, it's just two different types. Okay, or well, two different illustrations. And then, of course, you have the Pentaceratops, which is pretty much it's pretty similar. It's
very, very similar.
That's a very so I mean that's kind of the
it's basically saying, oh, big brow horns, big frills, big long frills are found in the south, and we just don't find that in the north. We don't usually find it. We find it every so often, a thing or two, and we think it's because of the seaway movement. So seaway recedes, few animals go up north, and then seaway comes back, animals stop moving.
And I mean that's just as you said, just confirmation that the species in the south is from the south. Like
it's basically reinforcing what we thought, and it seems to make a lot of sense. People are liking these hypotheses. It's not like, that's too far-fetched, or that's too different. I've spoken with several people and they go like, that does make sense. So we're pretty happy with these projects, and hopefully soon we'll get this other paper that I have on the works published soon.
And of course with Pentaceratops, do you plan on doing anything with the other true with that with Pachyrhinosaurus?
Hopefully, and that's what I'm looking to do up here now in Alaska. See what's going on with the horned dinosaurs. What else can we say? What else can we build up on? Pentaceratops. That Pentaceratops project was mainly thanks to Denver Fowler and Dr. Elizabeth Friedman, who absolutely helped me with that project and helped me, put all these thoughts together, and gave me the opportunity to be able to lead that project. So hopefully I'm able to do something similar with Pachyrhinosaurus.
And as a representative of the URSA, the University of Alaska, of Southern Alaska. Yeah. I don't know why it didn't make sense to me. No, I'm just reading this wrong. What am I reading? As a recipient of the URSA award, what advice would you give to a wow, I cannot speak or read. As a recipient of the URSA award, what advice would you give to a fellow undergraduate student interested in getting their initial research published in such a specialized field?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So for any undergrads out there watching or listening, it's really important for you to keep doing the research, to keep reading papers, to have that drive, and most importantly, just have your doors open. Have your doors open for whatever research opportunity that you're able to get yourself into. Sometimes it's not exactly the thing that you want right away. It's like, oh, it's not Tyrannosaurs. I want to work on Tyrannosaurs or Raptors or etc. Every single opportunity that you can have is really important. So just put yourself out there, volunteer where you can, spend your time in the field. It doesn't have to be out in the field, actually, just digging, but maybe in the lab. Pick through material,
The
sort through
field,
grains of sand.
the
Uh,
metaphorical and literal field.
yeah, go out digging, volunteer one of your summers with a field crew, and you'll learn so much. Of course, be open to learning. I've gotten several people sometimes that are just not willing to learn. They're just like, no, I'm right all the time. And it's like, well, the thing is, you have to be open to new ideas. You have to be open to new hypotheses. You have to be open to just receiving information. So put yourself out there. Uh, Make sure to volunteer everywhere you can. Maybe your local museum is holding an event and you want to volunteer. Ask them about volunteering in the lab. Ask them about volunteering anywhere. And that's how you get to speak with these people that are, leading projects. And that's how I got my start with Denver Fowler. Um, that's how I got my foot on the door in paleontology. Volunteering, volunteering. Then you meet them, ask them the questions, be ready to learn. And that's basically a nice little conclusion to how to get your foot in the door for paleontology.
Literally just text people. You'll be
Yeah,
surprised who responds.
you'll be surprised. You absolutely be surprised.
Email,
Hey, I'd like
message.
to volunteer at your museum. Hey, I was thinking of applying for your position. Hey, do you need any help with any undergraduate research? Is there any way I can? And obviously, if you're part of a university or institution, it's
Check
better
within your
to
university or institution. There's probably
absolutely,
something, and they'll be more inclined to let in students from the school.
absolutely. And of course, maybe it's not paleo. Maybe you're volunteering at a geology lab. Maybe you're volunteering at a biology lab. But as long as you get research experience, you get valuable information. I didn't start by doing dinosaur fossils. I didn't start by doing bones at all. My first project was bird tracks from Mexico. They were small bird tracks
I think that
from
counts as
the
dinosaurs.
Maastrichtian. But it's not bones, it's not a theropod, it's not a hadrosaur. That's how I got my start. I was in charge of measuring the angle between the toes and drawing the tracks. That's all I was. That's all that I was doing. But I know it's not ceratopsids. I know it's not duckbill dinosaurs. I know it's not tyrannosaurs even. It's birds. It's not even bird bones. It's bird tracks. But that got me research experience, and I can now say like, oh, I participated in research. I was able to get a research experience, and then from the bird tracks, I think the next paper was, oh, I helped with some raptor bones. And then I helped with some Oviraptorosaurs from Mexico. And then I worked with the horned dinosaur from Mexico. And then I got to the US to work with dinosaurs. And then now I'm in Alaska. So even if it's not your particular niche or field, oh, I want to work on long neck dinosaurs. Any research experience is good experience. That's basically what I can tell people. Just
And also, here's the thing: be open to any position.
Be open to any position.
There-
Absolutely.
If you're starting out, you're probably just going to be the dude that's just like, hey, we need to get this, like, we need to get our resources organized. Just
Yeah,
do that. If your name's on the paper, it counts. Your name
absolutely.
is still on a paper. They'll put your name on it. Just like,
Any research experience is good. Any research,
it helps.
it helps. And you might not think it at first. You're like, oh, this is trivial. Oh my God. I've got like, I'm like shoveling dirt or whatever. I'm like picking through like grains of sand. It'll give you so much insight into research. You'll get to talk with the authors. You'll get to talk with the data analyzers. You'll get to, and sometimes we just don't like some parts of academia. So if you just don't think you're cut for academia, that's totally fine too. There's so many other positions. Maybe you like interacting with the public some more. That's totally fine.
Maybe you just want to dig stuff. That is a position.
Yeah.
You can just, like, I can almost guarantee you most universities that have some field of sort of paleontology, or any museum that has that, if you can dig a hole, they'll hire you.
Oh yeah.
They'll send you out. You can dig a hole for them. But I mean, it just you got to find what you enjoy. And I mean, paleoartists are always needed. People who can actually just look at this stuff and sculpt it or draw it out or take pictures of it. Photography, I feel, is a heavily underrated thing. Photography, taking pictures of the quarry, of where these things come out, what they look like coming out, where they are just naturally in the ground while they're exposed before they're jacketed in the museum for whatever, just to get public interest. I mean, it's a huge part that people don't really think about. I mean, it's you can do pretty much anything with any degree. You
Absolutely.
can do pretty much anything within paleontology if you try hard enough.
Absolutely. And you don't have to have a degree in paleontology to be a paleontologist. You can help any other way. Papers need photographs. We need to photograph the specimens. You can just basically help somebody photograph a specimen. That's it. Take measurements. Just trust us. We need help.
It works.
People doing
Trust the
papers
system.
need help. Like all the time. With whatever. Just put yourself out there and be ready for everything.
So I think we're closing in on the end here, almost 3 hours, but just amazing. Do you have any final words of wisdom, final thoughts you want to say, any final things you want to bring up?
Final words of wisdom would be just keep being curious, have that itch, and if you want to be out there in paleontology, just be ready for anything. Be ready to help out anybody with anything. Just put yourself out there. Or maybe it's not, maybe you don't get to start with paleontology. Maybe you get to start with a biology lab. Maybe you got to start with a geology lab. As long as you put your foot on the door in science, you'll be there. It's better to say, hey, I have some experience doing bug research than just being like, oh, I didn't do bug research because it wasn't dinosaurs. People are always going to be like, oh my God, you did bug research? So you know how research works. Instead of like, oh, you didn't do anything? Yeah. So of course, put yourself out there. Don't shut your doors. And you never know who's going to reply. You never know who's going to like need help with a project. And keep reading papers, keep being curious, and keep putting yourself out there. Absolutely.
Very, very wisely and beautifully said. Well, I guess that's all from me for right now. I'm really bad at outros. I just realized that. But I'm your host, Eric Crawford. This has been the Prehistoric Life channel. I want to thank you for coming on, taking time out of your day and your schedule to come talk to not just me, but everybody who watches this. And it always just means a lot to be able to talk to somebody about this.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was an amazing opportunity. Talked a lot about dinosaurs, geology, and biology. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And if you ever want something, or I'm really bad at talking tonight. I have no idea what's going on with me. If you ever have something you want to bring up, have put out into the public, or you just want to come back on, shoot me a message.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll keep you in mind. I have a few papers in the works, and I think they're pretty cool. And I'd love to share them with your audience too.
Absolutely. I'm sure they'd love that. But again, I'm your host, Eric Crawford. This has been Prehistoric Life Podcast. Signing off. Have a good afternoon, morning, evening, night, whatever time it is for you. And remember, keep it prehistoric. Goodbye.